Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anirudh. Let's do that again. My name is Anirudh Dalmia. In the second instance, the introduction had a little more weight. Perhaps it's the few pounds I gained in my India holiday. Jokes aside, I firmly believe we are all a product of two stories: our first name and our last name. And that thought has ignited this anecdote. Our last name is our inheritance, and our first name is our responsibility. I was born into a family of Dalmias, businessmen. Big, small, everything in between, WhatsApp university businessmen. And they all built enterprise. My grandfather, born into a business family, was born into wealth. But very early into his life, legal issues meant that all of that wealth, all of a sudden, gone. When wealth leaves a family, it doesn't leave quietly. It leaves with it a hunger to rebuild. And that hunger to rebuild crafts resilience. He stood up on his 2 feet and at a very young age started hustling to build his own enterprise, the fruits of which my father and I continue to enjoy. It's that resilience that he passed down to my father and hopefully my father to me. Another thing that my father passed on to us, or rather my grandfather passed on to us, was his ability to be loud with his words, but unfortunately, an inability to communicate to his fellow man. Again, our last name is what we inherit, and our first name is our responsibility. Today, I stand before you as the first working professional of my family. I chose boardrooms instead of balance sheets. I chose presentation decks instead of production lines. So while they built enterprise and company, I'm building PowerPoint slides. And as a consequence, I, Anirudh, don't have necessarily the history or the counsel to borrow to craft a path forward as a working professional. That's a path that I need to build for myself. Similarly, I chose to occupy a stage, learn how to better communicate, ensure that the strength of my words doesn't come from the volume of my speech, but by the power with which I can connect with my fellow man. Again, our last name is our inheritance, but our first name is our responsibility. Let's dive deeper into this philosophy. How many of you know Robert Downey Jr.? Show of hands? Of course, who doesn't know Iron Man, right? Robert Downey Jr. was born into a family of addiction. His early 20s was spent battling addiction. Anyone and everyone who would refer to Robert would be, oh, that Downey kid. But in his 30s and 40s, he charted his own path forward. Quit addiction through rehabilitation, built enterprise, blockbuster after blockbuster. And today, he is the one and only Iron Man. Because after all, your last name might walk in through the door before you do. But what happens once the door closes is on your first name. Though it's not all doom and gloom, you can inherit something worth keeping. How many of you heard of Ratan Tata from the Tata family? The name Tata brings the elevator down faster than the button. His name gave him opportunity, gave him access. But today, We just don't know Ratan Tata as that Tata kid. We know him as Ratan Tata because he leveraged off of his family name and spread the family business all around the world, gave it wings that it didn't have before. And as a consequence, while he inherited the Tata name, he took it upon himself as his responsibility that Ratan Tata has a legacy of his own. Therefore, once again, your last name is your inheritance, but your first name is your responsibility. So how does these two stories come together? I believe that your last name are your roots, whereas your first name is what you allow yourself to branch out to be. And it is through this amalgamation of your two stories is what you leave behind. Because the day we are born, we're given the gift of our first name, Anirudh, Roy, Yvette, Fareed. But we are loaned our last name, Han, Dalmia, Ravan. And tomorrow, we have to pay back that loan with interest served to the next generation of Hans, Ravans, and Dalmias. And it is the chapter we choose to write that will define what they inherit tomorrow. So once again, I ask you, or rather state, that your last name is your inheritance, but your first name is your responsibility. So what chapter are you willing to write? Thank you.